I rise today in strong support of H.R. 1855, the Strengthening Employment Clusters to Organize Regional Success Act, or the Sectors Act, legislation that I introduced in the House, along with my colleague from the other side of the aisle, Congressman Todd Platts. I want to thank Congressman Platts for his work on this legislation and for recognizing the worthiness of this effort. The Sectors Act was introduced as bipartisan legislation, and I am pleased that we have gained additional bipartisan co-sponsors as well. I also want to thank Chairman Miller and Ranking Member Klein of the Education and Labor Committee, as well as the committee staff, for working with me to move this legislation to the floor of the House. Now, no matter what party you're from, I think we can all agree that we should be supportive of innovative and collaborative strategies that increase the success of American business and improve the employment outlook of our workforce. As our country continues to recover from the economic downturn, we should work toward long-term improvements in our workforce training and resource systems and look at how we can better utilize the infrastructure that is already in place. Given our current economic situation and the fact that we have seen a steep decrease in federal investment in employment and training over the past 20 years, this effort is all the more needed. Recently, the New York Times ran a story detailing a significant mismatch between the skilled workers needed for many industries and the skill sets of many of the currently unemployed. The story also referenced a survey done last year of 779 industrial companies by the National Association of Manufacturers, the Manufacturing Institute, and Deloitte, which found that 32% of companies reported moderate to serious skills shortages. 63% of life science companies and 45% of energy firms cited such shortages. Through the Sectors Act, we are taking serious action to help address these issues and ensure that we build things in America again. In fact, just yesterday, the New York Times had another story entitled, "After Training, Still Scrambling for Employment," that detailed the struggles our workforce is having finding training to pursue careers in existing and growing fields. It also highlighted some successful existing efforts with sector partnership-based approaches. Some of our industries that are poised for continued growth and expansion and would be strong contributors to economic recovery, such as advanced manufacturing, clean energy technology, and healthcare and information technology, are struggling. By the nature of the problem, this means our nation's workforce is continuing to have trouble finding work in these fields because of the mismatch of skill sets. The Sectors Act addresses these issues by facilitating nationwide one of the key elements of successful state and local workforce development efforts, sector or industry partnerships. Sector partnerships organize stakeholders connected to a crucial industry, like manufacturing, for example, and will include multiple firms and businesses, employees, unions, education and training providers, and local workforce and education systems, among others, to develop and implement plans for growing or saving that industry. There is a particular focus on building new workforce pipelines where skilled worker shortages exist and improving the ways existing workers are utilized, retrained, and paid. The Sectors Act will put in place partnerships that lead to alignment of educational institutions, training institutions, apprenticeship programs, and all other training programs to meet industry demand, particularly for higher skill, high priority occupations. Regularly convening industry players on an ongoing basis to plan and implement strategies to save or expand their industry will help to strengthen connections and aggregate training and education needs of multiple employers. Sector partnerships will also help businesses recruit new workers, retrain dislocated workers, develop and strengthen career ladders across companies, and improve overall job quality. These types of strategies have been highly successful in states locally and regionally already, including my state, Iowa. The National Skills Coalition, which has been a strong advocate for these strategies for some time, has organized a broad-based nationwide coalition of workforce and vocational organizations, manufacturing associations, colleges and universities, chambers of commerce, and training and human services organizations that support this legislation and these partnerships. The Sectors Act is about helping industries access the trained employees they need to expand and thrive, helping employees access the education and training they require to be competitive in the 21st century economy and find quality jobs, and helping workforce development and education providers train employees in the demand of today's industries. In so doing, this bill will help ensure our nation and the American workforce continue to stand at the forefront of the 21st century economy. I would also like to thank Representative Miller, Chairman of the Education and Labor Committee, for his support of and work on this bill, and I would ask unanimous consent that a statement from Chairman Miller in support of this bill be included into the record.
The gentleman's request will be covered by general leave.
I urge support for this bipartisan legislation, Madam Speaker, which also has bipartisan support in the Senate, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in support of H.R. 1855, Strengthen Employment Clusters to Organize Regional Success, or the Sectors Act. And I appreciate Mr. Loebsack and the bipartisan way in which this has been a move forward. H.R. 1855 creates new grants within the Workforce Investment Act to help create or increase targeted industry capacity and partnerships within specific regions. This is an idea that's already being done in some places across the country with success. For example, Philadelphia has created a regional program to train nurses for their hospitals and healthcare industry needs. I believe federal policy should also encourage regional business development, improve worker training, retention, and advancement opportunities. That's why I strongly support not only this bill, but strongly support the reauthorization of the Workforce Investment Act. Madam Speaker, the Workforce Investment Act is 8 years overdue in its reauthorization. And I'm disappointed that we're not engaging in a larger discussion on Workforce Investment Act reauthorization. The American people are facing a tremendous economic challenge, and there's never been a more critical time to make sure our workforce has the opportunity to find new jobs or receive additional training. We need better systems of training and skills, and better skills development to help them move into new industries. I come from a small business manufacturing background, and I've seen firsthand that unemployed workers who receive additional training for new skills can obtain a higher paying job, which can radically transform their way of life. We cannot afford to approach the workforce and job needs of our country in a piecemeal way. The American people deserve a real, comprehensive job training bill. I, along with 8 of my colleagues, introduced H.R. 4271, the Workforce Investment Act of 2009, to begin the process of reauthorization of WIA. But unfortunately, my bill has not been taken up by the Education and Labor Committee. I do support this bill before us today, but I do believe it's a disservice to the American people not to have an updated, comprehensive workforce development bill, and urge this Congress to take action on full authorization of WIA as soon as possible. I do urge my colleagues to support the bill before us, however, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Iowa.
This is the gentleman from Kentucky. Do you have any further speakers?
I have no further speakers, Madam. I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Iowa.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, in closing, I do want to thank the gentleman from Kentucky for his support and members from the other side of the aisle for support for this bill. It's been a true bipartisan effort, and I really do appreciate that. In closing, I do want to say that according to a multi-year study conducted by Public-Private Ventures, participants in sector-based training programs earned an average of 18.3%, or about $4,500 more than a control group over the 24-month period of study. And in addition, participants in sector programs were more likely to work in jobs with benefits, including health insurance and paid time off, and were more likely to find consistent work, about 1.3 additional months of employment over the 2-year period than the control group average. This legislation will put in place additional sector partnerships, as I said before, between business, employees, and education and training providers that lead to collaborative planning, resource alignment, and training efforts for current and potential workers to improve our nation's business, manufacturing, and industry outlook. It is supported by a broad-based nationwide coalition of workforce and vocational organizations, manufacturing associations, colleges and universities, chambers of commerce, training and human services organizations nationwide, and it does have the dual benefits of helping businesses and employees, and it has strong bipartisan support in the House of Representatives. I urge support for this legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1855 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed.